Thank you very much for coming today. We have our speaker, Dr. Wang from University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And the topic is AI-based multi-flight Earth mode sensing for your understanding of Earth processes. My job is to introduce Dr. Wang and then facilitate questions and answers. So Dr. Wang is an associate professor in data science at the Department of Information Systems at UMBC. He leads Big Data Analytics Lab, BDAL, and co-leads NSF HDR institutes for harnessing data and model revolution in polar regions. He has also a lot of affiliate position. One of the affiliate position is with Department of Computer Science and Electrical Engineering, and also joint Center for Earth System Technology. And Center for Real-Time Distributed Sensing Autonomy. He received his PhD degree in computer science from Chinese Academy of Sciences in 2007 and did postdoc training at UC San Diego. His research interests include big data analytics, causal AI, earth informatics, and distributed computing. He has published more than 130 papers. He is associate editor and editor board of 4 international journals and many conferences. He has won several grants and few important ones. He won from NSF, NASA, DOE, all research laboratory, state of Maryland industry. And the most prestigious one he won from Early Career Faculty Excellence Award from UMBC in 2019 and also NSF Career Award in 2020. So join me welcoming Dr. Wang.
Okay, thanks for the invitation and the introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. I think at first time I visited TAMIDS. It's very impressive. University is very big. It's so big. It's heard like you have students of 17,000, much bigger than UMBC. We have about only 10,000. This visit because this is TAMIDS. I heard of TAMIDS long time back. I know this is a very successful institute on how data science helps other can work with different disciplines. You know, my research is also interdisciplinary. I want to explain my research, how I did the AI related research, how it can work with researchers and research in other domains. So I did my lab called the Big Data Analytics Lab. I'm also the co-PI for this iHeart Institute. It's composed of 9 institutes with 40 researchers. Together we want to see how data science can help with the Earth science, especially the polar region, because with climate change, the polar region is affected the most, and how data science can play a big role there. So some outline. I should first talk about my overall research as a portfolio, how I position myself to be able to show my identity and do my research. And I summarize the Earth AI challenges because I think some of you haven't done Earth AI for Earth, so I want to let you know how what are the challenges to do AI types of research for Earth applications. One of them is we have more and more data volume there, and data is very heterogeneous. And also we have traditional Earth science there has been many years, and they have different focuses with data science. I use 2 recent studies I have on Earth science. One of them is to how deep multi-sensor delimitation for both active sensor and passive sensor together to be able to do retrieval. It deals with the first 2 challenges and data volume and the data variety challenges. I have paper published in Big Data Conference 2020 and the 6th Spatial 2022. For second study, I will briefly explain how to match the search challenge with the different method focus between data science and Earth science causal study, how to identify causal relationship between the different Earth processes is one way to connect these 2 disciplines. So we use this deep learning based causal inference to quantify the Arctic amplification that talks about how Arctic is evolving based on its climate change background. using this time theory based called inference. We have a recent paper accepted by the ICMLA 2023 as we presented in December. This very recent work. About research portfolio, from my lab big data analytics, but itself is not a discipline. It's come from different areas. So I think it's connected with three areas. One is the digital computing, because once you have big data to deal with, you need a big infrastructure. So I work with different supercomputing facilities. That's what I work with Dr. Jianwu today. We have big data you need to do the computing to be able to run it in parallel, be able to new algorithm to process it efficiently. Second is data science, the traditional data mining machine learning area. How this algorithm can change can work with the new data sets coming from the new area. The third one is real world big data, where it's the frontier to identify new challenges to work with and be able to make a new research contributions. Most of my research will define new research problems. Once you're able to, from the complicated application, you find particular niche area you can work on. That's mostly it's an area that has not been studied well in the traditional data mining area. So you're working on that, and you're able to come up with your own solution that will be able to make contribution to the frontier. Together, we make a holistic and end-to-end research, be able to identify challenges, propose integrative solutions, and evaluate from many aspects. Efficiency, how you can do it efficiently from the computing perspective, how you can do it in an accuracy perspective, how to do it effectively, and eventually how to help the domain scientists. Are you able to help the domain, like earth scientists, to understand the system better? So that's beyond what the traditional computing will do, just to stay at the accuracy. So my research topic first is AI, Earth AI and application informatics with different applications, including CIS forecasting, how to use traditional historic spatial temporal data to forecast for the future, and with satellite cloud retrieval, the topic, how to detect the dark from the data, how to aspect topography. That is called number one problem for ice modeling, to think about the evolution of the ice ice sheet. That's telling eventually how much ice will evolve, go to the ocean and raise our sea level. Without knowing the aspect topography, you won't be able to do the good prediction. Climate data clustering, we how to like we have 4 seasons. What are the way to categorize the data into different clusters? Ocean ID detection from that data, how to detect it. That's another aspect. So next part is the causal AI, how to using different way to do it. Deep learning based one, doing benchmarking and big data causality. So streaming analytics, how to work with analytics on different new computing devices, including edge devices and different applications, flood detection, camera flood up detection, stream data forecasting. Last but not least, the digital computing, where you should be able to reproduce everything in the environment. We did it with cloud computing, how to do it with edge clouds and integrative environment. For this, we focus on these 2 parts. Challenges for RCI. So this is one survey paper. I'm a co-author for it. It's recently published to try to look at not every, but many aspects of Earth areas and how AI can play a role. If you are an untrained researcher in this field, I can give you a good overview. But I will focus on a few specific challenges here. One is the data volume. Because Earth data, it's simulations. Those supercomputers, they use the simulation for Earth science to predict different climate scenarios, how the climate how Earth will change. That needs even the current most powerful computer are still not good enough to do high resolution simulation. So they use quite large amount of computing and generate a quite large amount of data. Same time, we have better and better sensing from satellites and other sensing devices that generate very high resolution data. That's will increase dramatically from 2020 from 100 petabytes to 350 petabytes in 2030. So that's a very big challenge. Second is the data heterogeneity and the variety. Data generated from different sources, simulation, flight, satellites, with different resolutions. Some of them are 1 kilometer resolution, some of them 5 kilometer, with different spatial coverage, camera coverage, because every satellite has its mission for only a few years. They are here, they only can fly for 5 years. After that, the satellite will go out of the service. And but if into the science, we need the more connected spatial and temporal coverage. Last one, the traditional data science focus on the benchmarking. I will have a table since existing methods, the SOTA state of art technique give you like a 98%. My method give you 99%. With one point difference, I'm the best. So you can do that's what traditional data science computer science doing. But for the climate science, to them, I give them those presentations. They don't care. To them, the 1% difference doesn't make much difference. They want to know what the new knowledge you can get from it. What they call the new physics. We already know some of the physics. With very well-defined equations tells how the dynamics and works. But those simulations are still not as accurate. Not very consistent with observation. Observation and simulation always have some gap. They want to know what the difference is, how we can improve the physics, understanding better, able to explain the system. So we focus on accuracy, they focus on physical plausibility and causality. Because of the challenges are growing in interest to applying AI and data science in earth science, including the AI institutes. We have several institutes funded by the ISF to do earth science, environment science related applications. HDI institutes, including our ones, and the NASA have related programs, including NOAA have the strategies. So moving on to particular studies, we talk about the first one. It's a multi-satellite retrieval. So we have there's many satellites orbiting the Earth, and some of them they call the passive sensor. They don't send signals to the Earth. Only the sun will send signals, and some of it blocked by the clouds, and others some to the surface of the Earth, and they will reflect to them. And the sensor only look at the reflected signals. But active sensors they have signals sending out from the sensing sensors, and they go to either the clouds or to the Earth and will be reflected. So they also have the reflection, but they have one signal out. That's the difference between active sensor and passive sensor. So this is one passive sensor. They have they call various satellites. They have this many bands, wavelengths. Look at different wavelengths. They measure that signal for this wavelength. For the active sensor, they have others. Looking at different attributes, they have different information. So there's a very different sensors and very different results they get, very different signal they get. So when we look at the differences between this active sensor and passive sensor, you can see this is a global observation. This is Africa. I think this is America. So the virus and the passive sensing, they have the global coverage. Everywhere on the Earth, they have a very wide span. They can cover every area. But the active sensor is only the yellow dots. It's very might not be clear for you, but it's only one line here to have the active sensor coverage, because they only at 1 degree strictly looking down, and we look at the results back to the sensor. So there's only one line thinking about the whole area. So this active sensor, they are much less data you can get. The coverage is much less. But they have because they have signal coming out, and they have their sensing technology. They are accurate. Their results is much more accurate. So the challenge is like this Calip and the active setting data and the pattern data like various, they are heterogeneous in terms of spatial coverage, data features. This, if we are the data scientist, we look at them as features. We're using them as input feature and predict a particular attribute. And challenge is how to leverage the high data quality of the active sensors and global spatial coverage of passive sensors, so we can retrieve high quality cloud property globally. So eventually, want to improve this passive sensing retrieval to have global coverage, but the results accurate retrieval for particular cloud properties and in high accuracy. So we it's the high quality we leverage. We want to learn from active sensors how they achieve it, and we want to transfer some of the knowledge to the passive sensing. So this when I said the transfer knowledge, that's a part of the technique called the transfer learning. The main application is one way to do the transfer learning is to deal with the distribution shift between the two domains. Most existing methods, they are most for homogeneous domination. For example, they have if you train images like this bike, with white background, that's the machine model only learn how to do it with such background. If you switch it to the real world where we have very noisy background, the accuracy will drop, a lot because they have noise inside of it. The reason is the data in these two domains are different, and their distribution are different. So we are the first work to use the deep domain adaptation approach in this homogeneous and heterogeneous domains for the remote sensing. So this is our proposed model. I will explain each one of them, each component of the domain one by one. But overall, we have two models out. One is called Dama model. It contains the domain mapping part, the feature extraction, correlation alignment, and eventually we do the source classification, trying to see if you use the learned model to go back to the source domain, that's the active sensor, to see how good they are. And for the Dama WL, that's called the weak labeled data. So besides this whole model, we want to add one more component into it, because both active sensors and passive sensors, they can do prediction. The current challenge is the passive sensor, like various, their prediction is not accurate enough, but they still have their predictions. How we can use it together to make the overall prediction better. The first part is deep domain mapping part, because right now we have a different feature space. What I showed, I think the various have about 20 features you can utilize, and the active sensor Calip have only Calip have 20, and various Python only have 16. They have even the number of features are different. So we need to transform the target domain to the source domain into one space. Before that, we need to do the collocation. So because when you have data, every data point from the remote sensing, they are both their time, which timestamp you collected, because the clouds, they evolve very, very quickly. The same location look at currently and 5 minutes ago, they are different. So you have to talk about the time and location. So the first thing we did is do the data collocation to find these two satellites. They fly by at a similar time, similar location. There will be a threshold, because they have to be exactly the same, will be very difficult. We have thresholds, they are 5 minutes away. Within 5 minutes, they are very similar. And the location perspective, they have threshold about 1 kilometer and 5 kilometers away. From satellite perspective, 5 kilometers is a very small number. After they do that, we are able to have every pixel data we get from active sensor. We know which passive sensor pixels are related with it. Then we do through this transformation to be able to have them in the same target space. So we eventually can go to this. At least we have the same number of features. Then we go to this feature alignment. After that, we have this feature alignment and correlation loss. this coordinate loss through those deep layers, we do the transformation. Eventually, because the original feature, their space are very different. They collect very different hardware. They are different. They collect different data with different distribution. Through those multiple layers, we hope at this latent space that is not the original feature space, latent feature space, they are more or less be able to connect to each other. So deep learning is always trained on, right? You train them to make them to be close to each other. They will change the parameters of the machine learning model and make it to be similar. So we add this space. We measure the distance between the second order statistics of the target and source data. So after those transformation at this latent space, are they close enough or not? So we want to minimize this loss. And we also have this classifier that talks about using this latent space and using that to make prediction. Do you think this the clouds we call the different phase? Is this ice clouds, no clouds? First, no cloud and with clouds. If it's a clouds, it's an ice cloud, liquid clouds, or mixed clouds. Those are different. In our term, it will be the classification of tasks, different labels for the classification. So we combine this source prediction. Eventually, using the latent space, you predict to be which label, and use this correlation with lambda as a regularization to see combined loss, how we can train together with this loss together, how this model can have this eventually have this latent space that is good to close to each other. So they are, if they are very close in the time distribution, we're able to use that latent space to make predictions. Once we do it at this is the training time, we are able to get to the latent space that can make good prediction. At the test phase, we only have the target domain because we have the spatial coverage, right? We have a much more area that the passive sensor have the signal, but the active doesn't have. So we train with on track. We said the active sensor, passive sensor have the same observation. We train the model. If the model works well, we use the model for the off track, where we only have passive sensor signal. Because we already trained it, so this model and this branch through this here and through the mapping, through this transformation, eventually be able to make the classification. That the domain adaptation different from traditional transfer learning. The training time and the testing time, you as a test time, you don't need all the data. You only need the one branch to make the prediction. So lastly, we studied this additional label because the current passive sensor already made the prediction. How we can use it? Even it's not accurate, it have some knowledge there, so we can leverage it. With the original loss function, we now add this target prediction into it and see how it can improve the accuracy. So this is the experiment. We use the different days of the observation in 1 year. We have two part of it. The first part look at this the source domain and target domain. And the first part, you can see that the source domain, target domain, they are the same. So this is still a single domain. There's no domain adaptation used yet. Look at the first three, the numbers is about 0.9 something. And the last row in this first part is very accurate because they only use the label as an active sensor and use it to train itself. So it's stayed with a single satellite. That's our collaborator did in his own study before this grant. We look at the one satellite. If I only use one satellite to use the train model and make prediction, you can get very good accuracy. Our challenge is how they can learn from one that's active sensor and use for another one. Because once you're able to use for another one, you can use it for all the global coverage. If you only use for the active one, it's only the one track. That's only like 1% of the whole spatial coverage. So for the second part, all of them doing domain adaptation because the source domain and target domain are different. You can see our recent work, their numbers are not as good as our results. Our data model can doing better than those domains and also better than those one domain if you don't utilize the the source domain. Comparing to the existing methods that benchmarking, we are doing those better. We've been talking about the comparing with the first part, first 3 rows, we are showing using additional domain, the source domain, we are able to make better prediction. The last one, we use the feed labels at both the caliph and the virus, that's a passive sensor and active sensor. We can improve the accuracy even better, a little bit, 2% accuracy improvement. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Thank you. So we're also trying to understand what's going on, why things are getting better. Is something by chance or something actually doing better? So we use the TS linear technology to visualize the learned representation. That's how these two data sources, their data are different from each other. So this one shows that from different phases, they are the 2 colors are from two different sources. You can see the blue color and red color. That data, each of them is one data instance. They are very different. They are very distinguishable from this plot. And we move on through data mapping, domain mapping, and the correlation, feature correlation, and eventually weak labels. You can see the blue dots and the red dots, they are more mixed to each other. So at this space, we think their feature space are more mixed, and they are able to use each other to make prediction. So they are very similar to each other. Indicates the success of our approach because that's what we want. We want them to, at this latent space, be able to very similar distribution, similar similar features, so we can use either one of them to make prediction. On top of that, the second paper of this study, we improved it by adding more components into the study. I will start look at one by one how we make it a little bit even better. So it's in general we use the VAE approach. We think you're able to from original data you get to the latent space and be able to reconstruct back to the original the data space. That's one thing we can leverage. Besides that, we also tried other things. One is because the data is connected. You know, when you look at the pixels one after another, they are connected. Originally, they were only using each one pixel as a single pixel level. Now you can use multiple pixels. You can look at the neighborhood. How do you have you leverage that for your prediction? So we use 1D sequence to do the follow this track and use that dependency to help it for the prediction. That's the first part in this new architecture. Second part is the VAE part. That's the encoder decoder part. That's encoder part maps input data to latent space and approximates the posterior probability from this latent space. This use two log points. This is just the regular VAE part, KR divergence and the expectation. Reconstruct data from the latent vector. So that part we didn't change it. We just use the existing VAE approach. With that, we're able to get the VAE loss from this both source domain and the target domain. Each of them have 2 parts. The third part is because we have 2 domains. The VAE is only we did for each branch, and now is because we have 2 latent space from both branches, we can link them. We use MMD based on alignment to minimize the distribution discrepancy between the source and target domain. We have this adaptation layer to add this encoded pairs and to measure their differences. We use this particular maximum mean discrepancy loss and to convert them into this RKHS space. And you use this distance to measure the different distances between these 2 parts, this one domain and second domain. We get one more loss. We're able to measure how similar these 2 domains are in this latent space. Now we have, because we have the each domain have its own classification you can do to each branch tells this pixel is which type of clouds. So we can have, like the first model, we can also do the classification to see how this one prediction using this latent space and how good it is. But here we made some changes with this target model, target domain, because we know this target domain, we have prediction is inaccurate. So we have some differences. So we have changed the weight for the weight target labels, because if something disagree with the accurate active sensor, we will have more weight on it. If it's equal weight it, we will have the weight is 1. If it's mixed code, this one special one, we can skip here. But for this one, if it's different, meaning the accurate sensor think is one type of code, but the pipe sensor think is another type. But because the pipe sensor is not always is inaccurate, we already know it. So we want to put the loss more on it. So we penalize these types of disagreements. So it will eventually be able to agree with the accurate active sensor more. So with this a few challenges, a few components, we can get the overall loss as an end-to-end fashion to align multiple domains and build a domain environment classification that have multiple parts. One is the loss of a deep domain mapping, and the VAE loss for the source domain, target domain. We have this loss of the domain alignment for this hidden space. We also have the original classifier for the source domain and the target domain. So combine everything into one loss, we are able to train the model and make the tests. So we tried with those, like the first part we did with a single domain, source target with the same domain and existing methods. And we also tried our methods with related work and the different changes that the application studied without this domain mapping or without this 1D CNN part. You can see that our proposed model is doing the best among all the methods except this one. This one is still the single domain only for the active sensor. We know it's accurate enough, so we just for here as a reference. But if you're looking at the target as the virus, this is the best one, and they did a little better than our previous proposed model. So we're able to make it a little bit better. Conclusion from study 1, we utilize the data from multiple satellites jointly, we're able to achieve better information retrieval for the target physics variables. In this case, we predict the cloud phase, whether it's a heavy cloud or not. If it has cloud, a liquid cloud or ice cloud. We propose a deep domain adaptation methods with heterogeneous domain mapping correlation in part with both active sensor and passive sensor. So traditional, if you're using traditional machine model, you will just train data with one domain. But now we're trying to see using 2 domains with multiple sensors together, are we able to do retrieval better. With our VAE-based model, we are able to perform the first model by capturing the spatial features. We have the 1D student part, have this domain alignment part, and also eventually have the customized loss weights for the disagreement between the active sensor and passive sensor that achieve a little better. Second study we did is quantify this Arctic amplification. So we're talking about the methods differences. So this is a background on the Arctic amplification, talking about complicated processes for the Arctic. They have many components. You know, this is from a reference. I cannot claim I know everything here, but I want to use this figure to show there are so many components with this area. They have glaciers. They have runoff from the ice sheet and goes to the ocean. And we have CS already in the ocean. The ocean have its own circulation, but the ice have its own way of dynamics. Different dynamics happening at different components. When the Earth doing its own modeling, they have separate model for the atmosphere, and separate model for the ocean, separate model for the ice part. But here, when you're talking about the polar region, as every component needs to play a role, and this is so complicated. Understanding how its dynamics work with each other is important to understand to make a prediction for the future. So something we can ask question from it from this complex system. What is the cause and effect of the ice melt? We know CS is melting over 20 years. I think we lose about 30% of the sea ice in September observation. And what is we have, if the Arctic is very huge, which area we should be looking at? And are we looking at the passive data or future data? And how do we evaluate our findings? And what data sets are we able to do the research? Right now, many agencies are there to collect data. NASA is very instrumental for collecting the data. Also, NSF has its own instruments. Other agencies in other countries, Europe, Japan, China, they have their own satellites. They have so much data there available. Which one is the one useful for this study? How we can present this dynamics, complex dynamic interactions using data-driven approach. Some background our causal inference. It's coming from AI fields. It's long before even philosophy. How to understand things work. That's the causality. As a philosopher, people are already studying that like thousands of years ago. And now we are only talking about the recent definition and study mostly in the AI field. It's processing of the inference, mostly quantify. We know A cause B, but we don't know the strength of it. We want to quantify the inference of one event, process, or policy or treatment on another one. So we have a cause and an effect. We want to know how one factor affects another one. Wherein we do it many times in the medical domain. We have one medication. Does this medication help the patient's recovery or not? The study is very important to do the causal study. Different way to do it in the AI fields. We have a good calculus. That's pretty poor at UCLA. Is a Turing awardee, and he mostly studied this approach. And there's another one called the potential outcome framework, very often used in the medical domain to calculate the average treatment effect. You think about the medical to think of one medication useful or not. You have the two groups. One is the treatment group. One is the one you have taken the medication. So these two groups have to be identical as much as possible. So you can comparing the results. One group take the medication, and 6 days later to see how different they are. That's this way can study that. Some statements of the problem. Given the data covariance, because every time you have something associated with it, it's just not two variable A and B, and many other variables associated with it. You want to forecast the observed or factual and counterfactual values of the CIs. So we have the current observation from satellites. That's the factual one. Counterfactual means if I change particular variable. If I have more temperature around Arctic, will the CIS melt more? So that's we change the value to be a little bit not factual, so that's why we will change it. So comparing them, and we can get the potential outcome by intervening or pertaining certain variable. That's also called the atmospheric processes. So that is like a treatment. We have this one as the one without treatment, and this one is with treatment. So with these two together, looking at the differences, expectation of two differences, that will be called the average treatment effect. With this change, this particular variable of x, how y changes. Because when we're talking about the Earth data, they are all time series. Often one process will affect another process like a few days later or even a month later. So when you're talking about the lag of time steps. So here we have the lag of TL. So this original average treatment effect become a lagged average treatment effect, talking about the same treatment but with different lag. How this variable, the effect will change 2 days later, 3 days later, and how that different. So this has become a variable in this calculation. If you have n time of time steps, we calculate all of them and do the average of it. Challenges and solutions. We have first challenge is how we predict potential time varying outcome. The challenge for this one is both the cause and effect they are tuning. The time varying is not the binary thing, they have only one value. So this is called time varying outcome. The using deep learning models for time series data, so we can predict this particular variable for time series like 3 days later how this outcome will change, and how to have this evaluate model performance for counterfactual predictions, because the what we observed is factual, and what's difficult is to get to the counterfactual one to able to, we need one minus another one. With the factual one is easy, but counterfactual is difficult. How do you get that particular value and be able to do the calculation? So we often in the Earth data we only have observed one, we don't have counterfactual one. But so when we evaluate our model to the R, we only can do it with synthetic data set. So we have our synthetic data set from from formulas, and we use it. The last one is tackling the data varying confounding effects. It's beside this the cause and effect that other variables that is cause the covariance. They might be confounders, so which basically they affect both the cause and effect. So those things need to be balanced out when you do the calculation of the average treatment effect. So make sure these two populations are as much similar as similar as possible. So that's in the current strategies, we use the different balancing strategies, inverse probability of the treatment weighting or stabilized weighting. So our job is to make it working with the time series and with the time varying confounding effect. So some calculation about the methods. So it's all called inference, but with most of existing work on the added data. That is the independent distributed data. We work on time series, and we have statistical one and deep learning based one. Recent trend is using deep learning for causal inference. So our work is all into this category. So first is the balancing strategy. The G methods is part of this potential outcome framework. They use this generalized parameter score to tell with this previous value of this variable, that the cost with the covariance, what's the probability of this the effect variable at the time t, and then we use this weighting to balance out the different probabilities. So we use this IPTW be able to calculate when we do the average ATE average treatment effect. We use this IPW to be able to balance out the population. So we believe to, but this is this paper proposed this type of approach. This is very popular in the causal inference, but it's a later study shows that we need to unstable estimate and inflated invariance. Here, this X bar is the time series of the one variable with multiple time steps. So with that, we now have started to do the stabilized weight for binary treatment. How do we to have this using the regression? Other ways to do binary based treatments. Basically, you have only say take the medication, not take the medication. That's just one treatment that binary, you have either 0 or 1. Right? But for time series, it's very in the Earth data. The one variable, they always have values. It's like the wave, the values will change over time. So that cannot be a binary treatment. So we have approaches for the binary treatment. Our study is to make it continuous. So our way is to calculate the probability density function for this both part of this equation. And we estimate this probability function. We have some mathematical approach to do it. That's not our work. Our work is to do it through algorithm. We are able to use one approach, be able to calculate it, and be able to use it for our prediction. So what we proposed is this using probabilistic modeling. Particularly, we use the GMM to predict the density, estimate density for every time step. So we learned how underlying treatment will be using GMM and get the mean and covariance and we put in this equation, eventually calculate the probability density, and be able to eventually get to the SW. That's the stabilized wedge. So this is the algorithm. It's already complicated, but the most is to calculate the GMM based on the data and the train it, and eventually use the formula we showed earlier, and get this stabilized wedge. So this is the framework we use at the training phase. This is the GMM part. We have to learn this SW, stabilized wedge. But without that, it's purely a prediction part where you have LSTM model, LSTM layers for the sequences, and the test layer for the eventually predict the Y from X and Z, predict Y. But this is just to do the prediction of Y. With this new branch in stabilized wedge, we're able to get to this two part of the treatment, and we can eventually be able to calculate the ATE. So that's here is we able to train the model, and we eventually train a model called the POM, potential outcome model. This model is eligible for both. This is factual data, and the other one is the treatment data. So with the different values of X, we can predict with this model and a TL with a time of lag times future, how Y value is different. So with this training, we are able to this model be able to use for different treatment, and when we use it, we are able to calculate the different treatment, be able to do the minus and get to the average treatment effect. Go ahead.
So in previous slide, you were talking about the inverse probability of treatment rates, right? So how does that play into density estimation?
Yeah, so this is the mathematical paper talking about it. So from here, this is original formula. This paper is the mathematically proved unit standard of function can do it. So this you can see this formula is very similar to the probability density. So it's not our job to prove it to using probability density because this paper showed it. So we use the same idea. Thank you. So because we don't have ground truth for the real world data, we use synthetic data. To make it similar to the Earth data, we use this equation to have different the waves with the cycles. We cycle every time we go back to the original value, and we have dependencies. One variable called another one. So for this equation, we can get this causal graph. So which variable called another one. We have this causing noise to make it to be a little bit random. So this is nonlinear time series. Then we have observational data. That is from the Earth observation, particular data sets and with particular regions. And we use different metrics, MSE, just to calculate the prediction. How I predict the value and actual value are different. And this one is if we already know the actual ATE, I can say predict ATE and actual ATE how they are different. So with the syntactic data, we can tell the ground truth is this one minus 0.5. That's where we calculated using the equation and particle equation. Through this all the different variations, our model in GMM-based approach, we can see our values is the closest to the actual value, the true ATE for both the fixed treatment and continuous treatment. For the observation data, we also did it with different treatments. We take a look at the TBI as a gradient block index that is known to be having effect to the CS, and we are able to use this changing the TBI with different values, like 2 times of trend. They have a little bit trend, but we increase the trend to be 2 times and 3 times. How this CS extends, how much CS we are talking about, how much more you will be losing. So here, the more TBI you have, you will lose more CS. So this way, we are able to quantify how the TBI, that's one process affect the CS. Conclusion from it is we propose a time series based inference from continuous treatment effect estimation. We use a GMM based approach to calculate this to do the balance and be able to balance this time varying confoundedness and use the synthetic data to compare with state-of-the-art approaches. And with this particular study, our results are aligned with this physics-based study. So it shows these two approaches at least agree with each other. And we use this stabilized weights to for continuous treatment effects, and that's our novelty. I think we are done here. There's a grant from our NASA and NSF and collaborators from different disciplines and my students in my lab. Thank you.